What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my betting breakdown video for UFC Saudi Arabia. We have Robert Whittaker going against Ikram Aliskerov. And yeah, this card has been through it. We've lost so many fights on this card. We've had so many late notice replacements. It's crazy. And like the month of June in general has been just ridiculous in terms of losing so many fights, so many fighters falling off the cards. And yeah, it's been like the whole month of June's been this way. But yeah, as of now, we have 11 fights on this card. And it's my lightest card of the year. I'm 2.75 units deep. I have 4 bets, 1 parlay, and then 3 very long shot props. Last week, we hit Brady Heastand round 3, Mel Costa round 3 as well. Would have been a massive night had the Maness Flick fight finished. But yeah, looking to maybe hit some really big plus money spots, but ultimately the goal is to cash this big parlay for the card. Other than that, not a ton sticking out. It's not the best card from a betting perspective, in my opinion. Next week, UFC 303, a ton of spots sticking out already. I'm going to try to get ahead and maybe get some early bets out for that card. But yeah, so we'll talk about these fights. We'll see if anything sticks out from a betting perspective. If you guys could like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to support me more, check out dfsbythenumbers.com. Last week, they released totals on Saturday night. I'm hoping they do the same thing this week for UFC 303 because I will be prepared, going to start digging into all these fights tonight. So yeah, we'll get right into it. I don't have a ton to say about a couple of these fights. Just some fights I just don't want anything to do with from a betting perspective, and that's including this first one. It's Zhao Long going against Chung Ho Lee. Pick'em seems about right, minus 110 each way. I was more impressed with Chung Ho Lee just because I like his style. I like those guys that are just relentless, non-stop wrestler, grapplers. Like, kind of reminds me of Brady Heastand a little bit, where he's just going to sell out for the wrestling. This is a guy that's going to attempt, 15 to 20 takedowns if he needs to. Zhao Long, we've seen him on the Contender Series before against Christian Quinones, lost that fight by decision. And then even on road to UFC, had some decent moments, decent performances, but yeah, this is a close fight. I feel like it could be one of those like damage over control type fights potentially. Are the judges going to score control? Are they going to score damage? Are they even going to be watching the fight? I'm not sure. So a pick'em seems about right. You can make a case for both guys. No props sticking out on this one. I think this fight goes over and goes to decision, but that's like minus 200. So an easy pass for the first fight of the card. Next, we got Magomed Gajalasulov going against Brenson Ribeiro. Oh boy, yeah, the thing about this fight is, like, I don't know a ton about Gajalasulov. He has 8 fights. You're only able to watch, like, 3.5 of them. And he looks good. Like, he looks like the real deal. The striking looks solid. Can wrestle a bit. Just a well-rounded fighter. But against who? It's like low-level competition. This is going to be his toughest test to date in Brenson Ribeiro. So we got a guy in Gajalasulov who I'm just not 100% sold on and bought in on, going against a guy in Brenson Ribeiro who's just made out of glass. This guy's been finished in 5 of 6 losses, 4 of which come in the first round. I've seen this guy quit in fights before, so it's like, I like the under, but the under is like minus 200. Like under 1.5 is minus 200. I can't get there. The fight doesn't go decisions, minus 800. So I think it's a violent fight. It's just there's not a ton of ways to attack this one, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of people on like the over and the Gajalasulov by decision, which would be just a really big sweat, but I think I'm just going to stay away from this one. But I think Gajalasulov should knock this guy out. Next, we got Moin Gafurov going against Kung Ho Kong. I don't mind, like, actually the over in this matchup. I think both guys are very tough, very durable. Kung Ho Kong has 9 losses, only 1 by knockout, and that knockout came like 14 years ago, maybe even longer than that. And then as far as Gafurov, he has been subbed once in the UFC by Asadner Magomedov. Other than that, he has 5 decision losses. So I'll be looking at over here potentially. I can't lay minus 150 on Gafurov. I used to be so high on this dude. I had high hopes for him, and he lost on the Contender Series to Chad and Helliger. He's 0-2 in the UFC, and it seems like he just struggles to put together a complete 15-minute performance. Hence, him being 1-5 in decisions. So I don't know. He makes mistakes. He gets hurt. It's just, laying chalk on Moin Gafurov at this point is not something I want to do. I slightly lean towards him to win the fight, but it's going to be a fight to pass on. The over 2.5, if anything, but even that, it's not something I'm kind of running to the window for. Next, we finally get into some action for me. We have Renat Fakhretdinov going against Nicholas Dalby. And Renat is going to be the first leg of my 2-unit parlay for this week. I'm parlaying up my 2 favorite spots on the entire card. There's not a ton of spots I like, but Renat is one of them. So yeah, I think Renat can win this fight, and I think he can win it by any method. I think knockout is live. Renat has a lot of power. I think a club and sub is live. We've seen Dalby get club and subbed before by Jesse Ronson. And then I also think the most likely scenario is a Renat Fakhretdinov decision, 30-27 or 29-28 at worst if he drops the 3rd round. So yeah, I like Renat as a parlay piece, minus 325. And speaking of the 3rd round, I was shocked to see Nicholas Dalby's round 3 prop, plus 3,100 out there, best price. I got it at plus 3,000 for a quarter unit sprinkle. The thinking here is if this fight does reach the 2nd or the 3rd round, like Dalby round 3 is going to be very live. We saw Renat absolutely crumble in his last fight in the 3rd round, and I think that's kind of Dalby's path to victory. Like I don't see Dalby winning these at least first 10 minutes of the fight. So I'm hoping that Renat can go out there, just dominate the 1st round, dominate the 2nd round, and if he wins a decision, that's fine. It's good for the parlay, but if Dalby is able to pull off this upset, I think it will be in round 3 and at plus 3,000. It was just a crazy number to me. So, yeah, give me Renat here. Renat should win, but Dalby round 3 sprinkle is like, it's worth a shot in my opinion. Next, we got Nasrat Hackbrass going against Jared Gordon. Hackbrass minus 235. Jared Gordon is plus 200. I was thinking about maybe like Hackbrass by knockout, but it's only plus 160, which is kind of disgusting considering I was able to bet Hackbrass by knockout at like plus 500 against Jamie Malarkey his last time out, and now I'm only getting plus 160 for him to knock out Jared Gordon, which I think, is it on the table? Sure, but I would need a much better price than that because, more often than not, this fight probably does go the distance. I think Hackbrass does win, but Gordon definitely can make it competitive. I think Gordon has some high volume upside. Gordon has all the grappling upside in this matchup. It's a fight where nothing's really sticking out. I thought Hackbrass to finish only could be interesting, but it's like minus 300. So yeah, it's Hackbrass by knockout or pass, but the knockout prop's kind of not enticing enough for me this week. So it's gonna be a pass for me. Next, we got Shaar Magomedov going against Antonio Tricoli. What a mess of a fight. What an absolute mess of a fight. This was supposed to be Shaar Magomedov versus Ihor Peteria. Peteria pulls out. In steps Jolton Luderbach. Jolton pulls out. And then in steps Antonio Tricoli, of all people. Like, what's going on with this card? Nothing's really sticking out here other than a big, giant plus money sprinkle that I'll touch on in a second. But yeah, Magomedov minus 550. I don't love it. The Magomedov KO prop is minus 225, which I think that's the most likely scenario here, is he knocks out Tricoli. But there is a prop that does stick out, and that is Tricoli by submission, which is as high as plus 2,300. I see. I was able to get it at plus 2,000. I have a quarter unit on it. The reason being is the ground is lava for Magomedov, in my opinion. Like, if this fight hits the mat at any point in time, Tricoli's going to be very live for that submission. Tricoli's a black belt in BJJ. That's his base. I think he was dating or dated Mackenzie Dern. I like that. Extra practice there in the BJJ. So yeah, I think Tricoli, his money line's like the sub, and it's plus 2,000. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Tricoli, but his win condition is like literally a submission. So I put a quarter unit on that. Like I said, I think he probably gets knocked out, but are you going to lay minus 225 on Magomedov by knockout? Are you going to play him at minus 550? I'm just going to take the quarter unit sprinkle and hope this fight gets to the mat. Kind of like the Jekka Sergey Weston Wilson fight last week, where it's like if the fight hits the mat, you know what's happening, and that could be the case here. If Tricoli's able to get the fight down to the ground, a sub could present itself. So yeah, don't mind a little sprinkle on Tricoli sub. Next we have Johnny Walker versus Volkan Oezdemir. I'm not touching this fight. I mean, this is my least favorite fight on the card. I don't trust either of these guys. Johnny Walker, he has no chin. Johnny Walker's completely changed up his style since coming into the UFC. He's now a lot more conservative. He's not that wild man that he used to be in a lot of his fights. Volkan Oezdemir, I think he's massively declining. I know he got a win in his last fight against Bogdan Guskov, but the Paul Craig fight was embarrassing. It looked like he was fighting underwater. It looked like he was fighting in slow motion. So yeah, I think this fight goes one of two ways. Either somebody gets served in the first 5 minutes, or this fight goes to decision and it's completely unbearable, where both guys really respect each other's power, and I'm kind of leaning towards that. So I picked Uzdemir because he's more durable, which is not hard to do against Johnny Walker, and I think he's a little more active in the striking, but this is a fight I just want nothing to do with. No props sticking out, nothing. Next, we got Muhammad Naimov going against Felipe Lima. Yeah, kind of the same thing in terms of this fight, in terms of I don't want anything to do with it, but this is a fight that I'm actually really excited to watch. So this is like the people's main event. A ton of people are betting on this fight. A lot of people are on dog in Lima, and this line is like crashed down throughout the week massively. So Lima opened up plus 210. He's currently minus 115, and Naimov's minus 105. This line might potentially flip in favor of Felipe Lima. And I've never been the biggest fan of Muhammad Naimov at all. I think the time will fade him to become will come soon, and maybe this is the time. But yeah, if you would have given me plus 210 on Lima, I would have absolutely taken that. Minus 115, I can't do it. I can't. He's taking this fight on short notice. He's coming up a weight class. Naimov isn't bad. He's well-rounded. But yeah, if you got big plus money on Lima, I don't hate that because I do see this fight playing out pretty close, pretty competitively. So it's one I'm going to sit back and watch. But best of luck to everybody betting on this fight because I don't really see much sticking out, especially where the line's at now. Had to pick 'em. I don't have interest one way or another. Next, we got Kelvin Gastelum going against Daniel Rodriguez. Just a mess of a fight on a mess of a card. I mean, on the Gastelum side, you have a guy that just doesn't care, a guy that just doesn't want to be there, a guy that at Media Day said he can't make 170, and then they talked about maybe making it a catchweight at 180. And he said he couldn't even get the catchweight of 180, and now the fight is at middleweight. So, I mean, what does that tell you? It tells you that he's not taking it seriously. So you have a guy in Gastelum who's minus 205, who's not taking the fight seriously, going against the guy in D-Rod who's potentially on his way out, who's potentially declining. He's not looked good in his last 3 performances. And on top of that, he's taken a year layoff. I think he had a suspension. So do you want to bet the guy that doesn't care, or do you want to bet the guy that's potentially washed? I don't want to bet either. It's absolutely a dog or pass situation at this point after Gastelum's weight situation. Like, I would not even think about laying minus 200 on this guy at this point. But at the same time, I can't quite get to D-Rod. I was thinking maybe like a D-Rod plus 3.5 point spread bet, which I saw at minus 125, which means he doesn't have to necessarily win the fight, but just has to win a round. I don't hate that, but just seeing the last 3 performances of D-Rod kind of scare me away from putting any money on him. So yeah, it's a big pass. Don't have much interest in this one. Next, we got Sergey Pavlovich going against Alexander Volkov. And this is going to close out my 2-unit parlay. I have 2 units on Fakhretdinov to win on the money line, parlayed with the fight doesn't go decision. Minus 400 came out to minus 158 for 2 units to win a little bit over like 1.25 units. And if this fight goes the distance, the glove curse is real. But no, I think this fight finishes. I think this fight probably even does finish under 1.5 rounds. I was looking at the under 1.5, which I didn't expect it to get hammered this much throughout the week because there's this whole their friends narrative. They're taking pictures, they train, all that. But at ceremonial weigh-ins, it looks like that Volkov was pissed at Pavlovich. So I'm hoping these guys do fight. And I don't really buy into that narrative because if these guys played patty cake for 15 minutes, I think that would be a very big mistake on both guys' parts because both these guys are if either guy wins this fight, they're right there in terms of the title picture. So I expect to see both guys try to go out there and destroy each other, especially Pavlovich. And I think the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 400. It's a good parlay piece. I see minus 350. It's a good parlay piece. I don't hate the under as well. So give me violence in this spot. I'm looking to close out my parlay with the fight doesn't go the distance here. And then I also have a quarter unit sprinkle on Alexander Volkanovski by submission at plus 1,700. And my thinking here is if you're Alexander Volkov, what should the game plan be here? Should you go out there and strike with a scary monster in Pavlovich, or should you go out there and try to take him down? Volkov just got his black belt a couple months ago, and you would think if he gets this fight down to the mat, I think he has a massive advantage. Volkov got a submission in his last fight against Tai Tuivasa. Pavlovich, the only time we've seen him off his back, looked like the worst we've ever seen. So yeah, I think if Volkov gets this fight down to the mat, this sub is going to be very live. Obviously, I think the most likely scenario is a Pavlovich KO1, but plus 1,700 for the Volkov sub, I think the path should be there. And then you never know, like, these guys trained with each other before. You never know. Maybe Volkov was able to get the better in the grappling. Maybe that's why he accepted this fight. We'll have to see. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in this fight, but one way or another, I'm looking for it to hopefully finish inside the distance one way or another. Then we got Robert Whittaker going against Ikram Alaskarov. Yeah, so there's a couple spots sticking out. Like, I'm going to be looking to maybe live bet Robert Whittaker after the first round or so. I think the line where it's at is about right to me. Like, minus 160, that's fine. I think Robert Whittaker's slight favorite makes some sense. I think there's some reasons to, for sure, like Whittaker in this matchup. He's fought the much better competition. He's been 25 minutes. Alaskarov, this fight was originally supposed to be against Tricoli. It was supposed to be a 3-round fight. So yeah, I think Whittaker, slight favorite, makes sense because Alaskarov, I think this guy is the real deal. I think this guy could potentially be a contender as well. He's very dangerous, and we've seen Robert Whittaker just in a ton of wars take a ton of damage. We've seen him hurt in like a million fights at this point, so that kind of scares me a little bit. But yeah, I think it's kind of, I'm seeing it Alaskarov early or Whittaker late or by decision is kind of how I'm seeing it. So Alaskarov, if you like his side, like I think the 1-2 props make a lot of sense. I saw his first round or round one, round two combination was like plus 370. Like I think that's kind of how he wins. I see some people on like the Alaskarov 1-2-3, which I think makes sense as well. In terms of Whittaker, maybe the 4-5 decision, maybe the 3-4-5 KO, something like that. But yeah, I'm going to also be looking at this fight from like a live bet standpoint. Ended up passing because I like Whittaker to win, but Alaskarov just terrifies me. And like I said, I think the line is about right. It's about right. So maybe after the first round and a half, maybe get plus money on Whittaker if Alaskarov is able to have success, especially in the wrestling. So yeah, live bet on Whittaker, if anything, for me here. And we'll see what happens on this one. So yeah, guys, that's about it. Not a ton of action for this week. I'm saving all my ammo for UFC 303. A ton of spots sticking out next week. I might have more action on UFC 303 like Sunday than I do on this entire card because, yeah, only 2.75 units deep. I have the parlay 2 units on Renat Moneyline, parlayed with the fight doesn't go in the Pavlovich-Volkov fight. Then I have quarter unit sprinkles on massive props. Dalby round 3, quarter unit sprinkle plus 3,000. Volkov submission, quarter unit plus 1,700. And then Tricoli by submission, quarter unit plus 2,000. Need to hit that parlay, and hopefully it comes through. So, yeah, guys, best of luck for UFC Saudi Arabia. Enjoy the card. It's an early one. I'll be doing best bet 2 hours before the prelims. So the prelims start at 12. I'll be going live at 10 o'clock Eastern time, so check that out bright and early. And, yeah, guys, best of luck. Talk to you soon. See you.